He was the spark that lit a fire, the boy who dreamed beneath twin suns, the legend whispered across star systems. But legends lie. They shine too bright and leave too many shadows. And in those shadows, the truth hides, bruised and burdened, waiting to be seen for what it is. Not a hero, but a man who broke under the weight of hope. The galaxy crowned him savior, sculpted his story in stone before he had even lived it. They saw a Jedi, a warrior, a redeemer. They didn't see the doubt in his eyes, the tremble in his hands, the fear tucked behind every choice he made. He wasn't born ready. He was forged in loss, and loss never lets go. He carried a legacy he never asked for, chased peace in a galaxy that only knew war. Every step forward pulled him further from himself. Every victory echoed with silence. He found no solace in power, no clarity in prophecy. Just the echo of expectations louder than the Force itself, and when the echo cracked, so did he. They called him a coward when he vanished, cursed his name for walking away. But walking away was the only thing left he hadn't tried. He wasn't running from battle. He was running from becoming what he feared. Another ghost in Jedi robes. Another failure dressed as faith. Another lie the galaxy could worship. And yet, even in exile, the Force never left him. It waited, like it always does, waiting for him to understand that failure is not the end of a story. It's the beginning of a truth. A truth he had to suffer to finally see. That no myth can save a galaxy. Only people can. People who fall and choose to rise again. In this video, we unravel the painful reality behind Luke Skywalker's myth. We explore how his idealism failed him, why his exile was not betrayal, but consequence, and how his fall may have been the most human thing he ever did. Luke Skywalker was never meant to be perfect. He was a boy chasing legends, a dreamer staring at twin suns, blinded by the fantasy of heroism. His journey was not born from strength, but from desperation. He didn't seek the truth. He fled from it, from his own doubts, from the crushing weight of what others believed he should become. And when the myth outgrew the man, Luke disappeared into the cracks between memory and reality. The rebellion called him a savior, but he barely knew what he was saving. He struck down Vader, not with purpose, but with fury, with fear, with a final surge of pain he could no longer suppress. His mercy was not control, it was hesitation, and it could have cost everything had Palpatine been less arrogant. We forget how close Luke came to darkness, how close he came to repeating the sins of the Jedi before him. He wasn't above them, he was born from them. And yet the galaxy needed a symbol, so it sculpted one out of his silhouette. It told stories of the farm boy who defied an empire, not of the man who nearly became the weapon he swore to destroy. Luke became a legend long before he became a leader, and that gap between myth and truth only widened with time. Every praise built a pedestal he couldn't stand on, every expectation another weight pressing him into silence. The Jedi were reborn, but they were built on the same hollow ideals. He tried to teach, to lead, to rebuild something sacred from the ashes. But he carried no doctrine, only regret, only fragmented memories of masters who failed him. How could he guide others when he had never found peace within himself? The Jedi Temple wasn't a sanctuary. It was a monument to his guilt, a silent confession that he never knew what he was doing. And when it all crumbled, he blamed himself, not because he was strong, but because he was always unsure. Luke's exile was not a betrayal of character. It was its inevitable conclusion. A man built on dreams who watched those dreams become nightmares. A hero who couldn't stop the echo of his own failures. A symbol who finally understood he was never ready to carry what the galaxy placed on his shoulders. And in that understanding, he vanished. Not as a coward, but as a man who had nothing left to give. The Jedi were flawed long before Luke picked up a lightsaber. They sat atop golden towers and watched darkness fester beneath them. They preached detachment, yet feared emotion, demanded peace, yet prepared for war. Luke inherited not a sacred order, but a crumbling ideology stitched together by denial. His quest to restore the Jedi was not wisdom, it was nostalgia. He thought he could rebuild what had already failed. He believed that by teaching restraint, he could erase fear. That by repeating the mantras of the old ways, he could prevent new pain. But pain always finds a way. Especially when you teach children to suppress what makes them human. Especially when you convince yourself that love is a weakness. Every generation clings to the past, and Luke bore the weight of that clinging like a chain. He was the son of a fallen hero, the hope of a dying order, the promise of something better. But what does that do to a person, to be told you are destiny incarnate? To be treated like prophecy instead of flesh and bone? He was never allowed to fail, never allowed to grieve. From the moment he chose the lightsaber, he was expected to carry the burden of centuries. He was asked to forgive a father who had committed genocide, asked to redeem a legacy steeped in fear. And when he did, The galaxy didn't thank him, it crowned him. And that crown became a cage. He watched his friends grow old, watched war return again and again, watched as every victory turned to dust. He tried to find purpose in peace, but peace eluded him. The galaxy didn't want peace. It wanted someone to believe in, someone to fight for them, suffer for them, lead them when they had no direction. And Luke, for all his strength, was never that person. He grew tired. Not because he was weak, but because no one can be strong forever. The war never really ended, it just changed names. And every time Luke tried to step back, they pulled him in again. Not for his wisdom, but for his name, his face, his mirth. And so he left. Not out of spite, but because he realized they never saw him, only the shadow he had become. And how do you keep fighting when your very presence feeds the same cycle you tried to end? People call Luke's exile cowardice. They see him on that island and forget the man who faced down death itself. They forget the years he carried the rebellion, the moments he stood alone in front of darkness and chose the harder path. But exile is not weakness. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. He wasn't hiding from the galaxy. He was hiding from what he had done to it. He saw Kylo rise and believed he was the cause. He saw the First Order grow and believed it was his punishment. The Force had once felt like light to him. Now it felt like judgment. He feared teaching again, feared passing on his failure, feared that whatever guidance he gave would only create another Vader, another Kylo, another wound in a galaxy already bleeding. And so he chose silence. Because silence, at least, would not destroy. But the Force doesn't let you forget. It hums, even in isolation. It calls, even when you beg it to stop. And when Rey appeared, Luke saw the echo of his past, the reflection of his younger self, and he recoiled. Not because he didn't believe in her, but because he no longer believed in himself. But even in failure, Luke found clarity. Even in doubt, he found truth. His final act was not one of violence. It was not a return to glory. It was sacrifice. It was peace. He walked into legend not by swinging a blade, but by becoming one with the Force. He faced the First Order without hate, faced Kylo without vengeance. He gave the galaxy time, gave the spark of rebellion new life, gave hope not by winning a war, but by showing that resistance begins with choice. Even the smallest one. He didn't fight to win, he fought to inspire. To remind the galaxy that legends are not flawless, that heroes can fall and still rise again. That belief is not in power, but in courage. And for once, Luke was not running from the myth. He became it on his own terms. His death wasn't a failure, it was freedom. Freedom from guilt, from burden, from expectation. It was the end of a long, painful journey, and the beginning of something new. A Jedi, not of rules, but of balance. A Jedi who understood loss, and chose to return anyway. And in that moment, he was not the last Jedi. He was the first of something better. Luke Skywalker was not a perfect hero. He was a mirror of our own imperfections. He stumbled, doubted, broke, and bled. He did not always rise with grace, but he rose. And that matters more than myth ever could. His failure was not a flaw in the story. It was the story. The story of a man who tried, who gave everything, who lost faith, and found it again not through victory, but through surrender, through the willingness to let go of what he thought he had to be. He was not the Jedi the galaxy wanted, but he became the Jedi it needed. One who questioned everything, one who challenged the past, one who chose peace over pride, and taught others to do the same, even if it cost him everything. In the end, Luke Skywalker was not a symbol of strength. He was a symbol of growth, a reminder that even the brightest lights can flicker, that even the greatest heroes can fail, and still, they can rise again. And maybe that's what makes him truly legendary. Not the battles he won, not the empire he faced, but the truth he left behind. That failure is not the end, it's the beginning of something greater.